Welcome to No Border, No Country. I'm here with Judge Matt O'Brien, as always. Matt, it's been a minute, but we're back on a different platform.
Back and better than ever.
Yeah, so we got a great guest today. Ron Vitiello is currently a senior advisor for Customs and Border Protection. He was previously the Border Patrol chief, deputy commissioner of CBP, and a former acting ICE director. Ron Vitiello, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me. Good to be with you.
Okay, you've got really unique experience in several of these agencies, so we're going to take advantage of that expertise and ask you a couple of different areas of topic. But we see right now the Trump administration is doing this enhanced deportation effort that's kind of unprecedented. What do you think have been the biggest challenges in implementing that program so far?
Well, clearly there's an issue about resources and scaling up, both operationally and with like things like logistics and detention. I think those things are on the right path. These activist judges have kind of hamstringed some of the follow-on actions once ICE takes folks into custody. You have these sanctuary jurisdictions that refuse to cooperate with this effort overall. But I think it is good and it's getting better. I think the biggest hurdle so far for the entire administration has been these activist judges, more activists than judges, who are getting in the way of being able to enforce the law, right? No laws have changed, even though the success speaks for itself with hundreds of thousands of people on the pathway or have been deported already. 1.6 million people who have elected to leave the United States, irregardless of the situation, whether it's with the government's assistance or on their own. And then border numbers, levels of activity at the border, I've never seen. I've been around this business 40 years, and the border is about as safe as it's ever been.
So ICE has been actively arresting a large number of people at the immigration courts and then putting them into expedited removal proceedings, which seems to be speeding things up. Do you think the immigration court has been a big stumbling block in this process?
Well, there's definitely a capacity issue there, right? We know, you all know, that most folks know that the non-detained docket exceeds 7 million people. Over 1 million of those folks have been in some kind of proceedings already. And so getting to the folks that are removable quickly, whether it's using the courts or not, but capacity is definitely a strain. Before the bill was passed on reconciliation, detention funding was based on a budget that was given to us by Joe Biden. And we know they were not committed to immigration enforcement or border security. And so those barriers are now out of the way. So capacity at detention is improving. And I would say that we're working on capacity for judges. They have a hiring plan at the Executive Office of Immigration Review. And there's also an effort afoot to add immigration judges from other sources, namely the Department of Defense. That's still a nascent idea, but we are doing the work, or ICE is doing the work, and the Department of Justice are doing the work necessary to see how many what the military would call JAG officers are available for implementation as immigration judges to surge that capacity.
Ron, the deployment of federal troops into Washington, D.C., including ICE agents, has gotten a lot of attention, to put it lightly. How would you evaluate the effectiveness of that operation so far? How's it going in your mind?
Well, I think the numbers speak for themselves. CBP has also got about 50 of our personnel assigned, both on the comm side and connectivity with other agencies as it relates to interoperability, and then high visibility patrols. There's also a number of special operators that are here doing targeted enforcement. And, the arrest numbers, the lack of violent crime or the reductions in violent crime, carjackings, et cetera, a number of illegal aliens arrested in operations, on the ground in the city. And then unsolicited, when I'm on the metro, when I'm standing in line at the dry cleaner, people find out what you do and they talk about the deployment in D.C. And there is an ambiance in D.C. that hasn't existed before. People are much more likely to be out and about, and there's a sense of security that didn't exist before these deployments.
So we hear a lot about sanctuary jurisdictions that don't want to assist the federal government, but it seems now with all of these enhanced operations, there have been a number of jurisdictions that are actually eager to help the federal government and to get illegal alien criminals off the street. Can you tell us a little bit about the jurisdictions that have had a positive reaction to all of this?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's at least one town in central Southern California where the mayor and the city council have elected to break out of the blue wall, if you will, in California, and they're indicating that they want ICE's help. You have another couple of jurisdictions who have raised their hand and said, we're going to change the way we operate with ICE and start to cooperate. And the important part of that is these arrests, people who are in the country illegally, in which a local jurisdiction has decided they've committed other crimes worthy of incarceration, arrest. And so the easiest way to get those people on a path to removal is to pick up the phone and honor the detainer that's filed by ICE, or cooperate on the front end and say, hey, we're going to arrest this person. We know they don't live in the U.S. They don't have residency status. They're here illegally. That's the safest way to do this. And so we're grateful that these jurisdictions have stepped up. And then ICE has done a really good job in scaling up almost every jurisdiction in Florida is a 287G partner, which allows them to cooperate directly, both in the jail setting and on the ground, patrols, et cetera. Texas also and has been a great partner on immigration enforcement in the interior as well. And so they've led as a good example in what can be done safely, deliberately, with the right training and cooperation.
This cooperation is great. We're still seeing a lot of pushback from these renegade sanctuary cities. And one of the things they're doing is passing these ordinances that say ICE agents can't wear masks during operations. How will that affect operations, if at all?
Well, the front line's going to do what it needs to do to succeed in the mandate that they've been given. The president has given them the tools they need to succeed. The leadership at DHS has their back. So they're going to continue to do what they do as safely as possible. The masks are only required because these agents have been doxxed. Their families' histories online have been exposed to the public. They've been threatened online by the keyboard warriors and maybe other criminal actors in the United States. And so they need to protect themselves. Masking is part of that. I would understand if a jurisdiction said, hey, we don't really want our law enforcement to have masks on, and then recognize what the consequences are. And if they passed an ordinance that say you can't do this, but then hold somebody to account or have laws that hold people to account for doxing federal agents, that would be something. There's people on the Hill that have said the same thing. They've said terrible things about what's going on with regard to the ICE arrests in the interior, but no account for holding the same standard for people who go online and threaten the families of agents in the front line.
So we're seeing record lows in terms of people trying to cross the border illegally. The UN recently published an estimate saying there's about 14,000 people that were attempting to get to the US and then decided to just not bother. And we're seeing record arrests inside the United States. So once everything is locked down tight, what's the next step to try and keep America safe on an ongoing basis?
Well, sustainability. I mean, you talked about sanctuary jurisdictions. We're hopeful that the actions the Justice Department has taken against some of these cities to either restrict funding or sue them in federal court for enforcing cooperation, especially in the jail setting in these sanctuaries, we think that's going to make a big difference. On the physical border, on the interior operations, sustainability is going to be key. So hiring enough boots on the ground to make sure that we can sustain the gains that we've made at the physical border, investing in more technology and infrastructure like a wall and the tech that supports the wall, access to the wall. So being able to sustain what's going on the ground in both in the interior and at the border will be like the next phase of this operation. Being able to sustain the lower levels of migration, continuing to enforce consequences against those who do cross. The average daily between the ports attempts and arrests is about 160 or 170. It's ticked up a little since the middle of July. But if you cross the border now, you're likely to be detected and arrested. You will most likely be prosecuted in federal court for the crime of crossing illegally, and you will be put on a path for removal very quickly. So that certainty of arrest, those consequences post-arrest, to sustain that over time sending the message around the globe that it's not the time to come to the United States, and the laws are going to be enforced in a way that people haven't seen in probably a decade or so. That's very important to be able to sustain that, not only at CBP with the physical border, but the interior ops with ICE, and then our partners in the Justice Department continuing to allow for time and space for consequences for those who cross the border illegally, those who smuggle others, those who support terrorist organizations by paying smugglers, crossing in these areas that have been designated by the military as military training and deployment areas. And so if you cross the border now, the consequences are much higher than they've ever been. You could be charged with illegal entry, charged with crossing into a military designated area without permission. And then if you do something wrong, like smuggle others or assault or impede agents, you're going to face the consequences in federal court.
We've gotten so much good news in the last 6-8 months about how the border is more secure than it's ever been. There's a short clip I want to show you here and get your reaction to this as a testimony to how secure the border has become.
Huge shipment of fake Labubu dolls. Some call them Lafufus. They were intercepted last week at Seattle's airport. U.S. Customs and Border Protection seized more than 11,000 dolls with a street value of more than $500,000. The shipment was falsely labeled as LED bulbs. No arrests have been made so far. Real Labubu dolls are made exclusively under the Pop Mart brand.
Ron, I didn't know what a Labubu doll was until 5 minutes ago, but can you tell me why is this getting so much attention and why is it important?
Well, it's another example of, an America First policy, right? We've enforced trade and tariffs for many years in U.S. Customs and Border Protection. We are the second largest contributor to the U.S. Treasury, right behind the IRS, as it relates to tariffs and taxes that get enforced at the border and other regulations as well, including intellectual property rights. And so there are lots of nefarious actors out there, including these cartels, which buy and sell and make counterfeit goods and try to sell them into the U.S. commerce market. And so in the foreign policy realm, the president has shown leadership and tried to regulate world trade on behalf of American citizens, American manufacturing, and the American taxpayer, and stopping things like knockoff products, both at the border and in the commerce in the United States, is a responsibility of the department. And CBP takes pride in finding shipments like that, which will keep U.S. businesses and their trademarks protected and in business, so they can employ Americans for their business ideas and for the commerce that they want to put in that's beneficial to us. And so, it's viral in the sense of, these are toys and, the victims here are unknown to us. But that kind of trade and that kind of cheating on trade happens every day, and the front line at CBP is there to try to stop it.
So that's one aspect of this that I think a lot of people don't understand, that both ICE and CBP are responsible for policing the borders and the interior of the U.S. for foreign goods, as well as violations of the immigration laws. And that includes things like counter-proliferation and other national security tasks. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that and about those roles?
Yeah, that's a very good point. There's nefarious actors all over the world. Think about a country like Iran that can't produce its own computer chips to do things like guidance systems, sophisticated radar, or military equipment. And so they send spies and operatives into the United States to try to procure those things, to try to smuggle them out of the United States into other countries. And so the men and women of ICE, CBP at the border, tries to stop those kinds of things, tries to stop the funds that cartels try to extract from our economy by selling their wares in the U.S. And so these efforts and crossing things that cross the border, ICE and CBP have specific authority to protect the commerce stream and to protect public safety, prevent terrorism, and prevent state and non-state actors from getting capabilities that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get on an open market. They try to smuggle them out of the United States. That's an important facet of the service that DHS, ICE, and CBP give to the country.
Ron, as we said at the top, you've had a long career in immigration enforcement. You've worked under different presidents. What are you hearing now as far as the rank and file, as far as the morale, the culture within these agencies now versus what it was in the previous administration?
Yeah, from the 4 years of Biden, the nonsense is over, and the morale is off the charts. People are eager to go out and do their jobs, and they're given that opportunity now. Not only their ability to do the work, their workload as it relates to illegal entry is down, and so that's more hours on patrol. That's more rescuing of people in distress. That's more rescuing of people who are being trafficked, and so that's why we hire these agents. That's why they are attracted to this work, because they get to go out there and protect the border and protect the American citizens. And so the morale is really, really in good shape in the sense of they know that all the way to the White House, the Oval Office has their back. They can do their job. They've been given tools to succeed, and they are succeeding. They can see the numbers. They can see the levels of activity. It gives them more opportunity to do more good things on our behalf. And then the recruitment roles show it. We've doubled the online interest and applications of people that want to come to work at CBP. The reconciliation bill gives us 3,000 net new Border Patrol and 5,000 net new on the Customs and Border Protection officer side. A few folks from the Air and Marine, a few positions at Air and Marine. And then we're going to recapitalize all of the things that have been neglected over the last many years with regard to the infrastructure that agents and officers work in, the cars and trucks that they do their work in as well. All of those things are going to be refreshed and upgraded so not only the policy that's in place makes them more effective, but they're going to have more and more tools and capability as the funds for the bill roll out.
So it's safe to say at this point the southern border is secure and probably more secure than it's been since the Eisenhower administration. But to our north, we have a massive border with Canada, most of which is undefended and most of which is very remote. So what do we need to do to secure our northern border at the current time?
Well, the reconciliation also gives us the ability to test and pilot some technology, stuff that we've used on the southern border and its application both on the coasts and on our northern border. We're going to continue to engage with our Canadian partners because there's a really good level of trust and cooperation with Canadian law enforcement. And we're seeing now in the government as well, because of the threat of tariffs, because of their eagerness to work closer with the United States in the foreign policy realm, they're leaning in on things like physical border, the threat that they face alongside us with fentanyl. And so the level of cooperation, both on the physical border and on the policy side, on the information and intelligence exchange, has all been leveled up. We need to continue to do that. The challenges, as you stated, on the northern border is a lot of middle of nowhere, unknown and undetected. And so what we need to do is enhance some of the surveillance for the physical border, and Canada is making investments in that direction, or at least leaning in to make those investments. We want to share that collaboration with them, continue to open up the dialogue about physical border patrols, and just be vigilant in the towns and the cities on both sides of the border that are eager for public safety and not having, the kinds of traffic that could exist up there. So I'm optimistic that Canada is in the right place as it relates to their mindset, but it is a challenge physically and operationally. So we got to, redouble our efforts and use some of what we learn in these pilots to expand surveillance and control to monitor that border the most efficient way possible, so we minimize the threats that exist there.
Ron, the other story that CBP was in the news about recently was that the Trump White House closed the de minimis loophole, another thing that most people probably never heard of before. What is that, and why is closing it important to drug trafficking and cracking down on it?
It's about commerce. It's about America first. It's about preserving the manufacturing base, or encouraging a manufacturing base in the United States. And so if you own a business overseas and you send your goods to buyers in the U.S., if the value of that product is less than $800, then it's not necessarily screened, taxed, and tariffed as it comes across the border, regardless of what the economic impacts are in the U.S. And so ending that exemption for things that are worth less than $800 allows a little bit more tariff revenue and taxes into the Treasury. It gives us better control levels because most of that is foreign postal packages. And so better relationships with those countries, better relationships with the freight forwarders and the importers that move those goods across borders, including our own, so that we have a good background on each and every package and element that's coming into the commerce stream. We know who's sending it, where it's coming from, what it is, and what it means to the economic security of the United States and what threats it might pose. And so ending de minimis gives us more control over what crosses the border, and it preserves American intellectual property and encourages people to invest in manufacturing and producing goods in the U.S. And it also might encourage consumers to look elsewhere and not buy things online from places they've never heard of.
So earlier you mentioned air and marine, which I think is a part of the Department of Homeland Security that a lot of people aren't familiar with. And during the Biden administration, we saw a massive increase in maritime border crossings. What is the state of those now? And given that both of our coasts are borders, are they being focused on as well? Are they now protected?
Well, we know that the cartel, as we lock down the physical border, we are well aware that the cartels will continue to try and using the maritime approaches, using our coasts near Brownsville and San Diego, and maybe other places as well. That's a threat that we need to be aware of. So CBP Air and Marine is focused on what they call land and maritime domain awareness. That's fancy words for knowing exactly what's coming in or near the coasts and what's trying to get into the country from those locations. And so think about large ships, maybe airships, large towers with radars, improving the sight picture, improving the radar coverage at our coasts, especially near the southern border, other places as well, and having the equipment and the men and women, pilots and sensor operators to be able to surveil that part of our country, the approaches to our country, because we know the cartels are going to try to exploit whatever avenue is available to them. So investing in infrastructure in those locations is going to be really important for us to continue to maintain a high level of security and understand what threats are still out there.
Ron, is there anything you want to plug or anything you want to talk about that we haven't discussed already?
I think it's important for your viewers to understand that the physical border is in better shape than it's been in my 40 years of experience being around this work. So people should take heart in that. The threat has been reduced greatly. And so these interior operations, although the left clutches their pearls over them, people are concerned about it, it is necessary to recover from what happened under the 4 years of Biden, which was a completely chaotic and lawless border, which led to immigration invasion, if you will, across the southwest border, affecting every city and town in the United States. So it might not be comfortable to some for us to have this reaction and take these people out of the country. It is necessary, and it's more effective than it's ever been in the history of the modern day, at least, because when you get sent out of the country now, it's going to be really, really hard to get back crossing the border illegally because of the physical gains that we've made at the southwest border. And I would also emphasize that the interagency collaboration that exists under the leadership of the secretary, the people at the White House, like the border czar, et cetera, the interagency cooperation is unprecedented in my 40 years being around governments. The State Department, Health and Human Services, the Department of Justice, DHS, the Treasury Department, all of us working together to make sure that the consequences for crossing the border or bringing things across the border illegally are exact and are exacted against these cartels and against people who think they can still come to the United States illegally. The State Department arranging repatriation agreements all over the world, safe third countries all over the world, arranging the diplomatic conditions so that we can send people to countries that might not have taken them back. And so that level of cooperation, almost 95% acceptance rate when frontline agents refer criminal cases to the U.S. Attorney's Office in local areas. Again, that's unprecedented. Health and Human Services working to protect the kids that come to the border alone, reunite them with their families, and keep them out of the human trafficking stream that was part and parcel of the Biden chaos that we saw over his 4 years as president. And so I just want a shout out to the White House, the leadership of the department, and our interagency partners who are all working together to keep America safe. And it is working very well.
Anything else?
Good, thank you.
All right. Ron Vitiello, thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
Thanks.
So Judge Matt O'Brien, Ron's a pretty smart guy.
Very smart guy, a significant amount of experience in both ICE and CBP. And that's the wonderful thing about this administration is they have pulled in all kinds of people with expertise who really know what they're doing, and they have turned them loose to actually do the job.
Isn't it amazing, though, when you hear him talk about the morale in these agencies is off the charts? I mean, for the last 4 years, all we heard was how the morale was in the swamp, basically. It was just lower than low. And to hear you've got agencies that are empowered and enthusiastic to do the job they're supposed to do, it's refreshing.
Yeah, it's very refreshing. I was with the Department of Homeland Security, with ICE in a couple of administrations that did want to let us do our jobs. And it's depressing because people don't do those jobs for fame and money. They do them for the satisfaction of serving the American public and making sure the country is safe. And when they're prohibited from doing that, it really takes all the fun and excitement out of the job. So it's fantastic to see so many people that I know that are still working for the government energized and really feeling like their services are important to the national security and public safety of the country.
Yeah. And, the Trump administration has been so successful at securing the border. Instead of talking about Tren de Aragua killers coming across the border, we're talking about Labubu dolls in Seattle. So that must be a sign that a lot of these threats are being neutralized at the border.
Yeah, I mean, looking at those Labubu dolls, I think they're a pretty significant crime. I've never seen such completely ugly toys. But yeah, that's a perfect example of what you can do when you take care of the little stuff that everybody knows about and you make sure that the border is safe and secure. Then that frees up resources to start looking for things that people wouldn't expect. I mean, I spent many years working for Homeland Security. I wasn't thinking about, seizure of counterfeit toys because we were always trying to play catch up in terms of getting the illegal aliens. Now we don't need to play catch up anymore, so we can focus on things like counterfeit intellectual property.